Hello, my name is Oliver Kiley and I am the designer of Hegemonic, a new Space Empire game coming soon from Minion Games. Hegemonic is a game of galactic exploration, conquest, conflict, and cunning for 2 to 6 players, playable in 30 to 45 minutes per player. In Hegemonic, each player will take control of the leadership of a great house that is racing to stake claim in a new and distant galaxy. Hegemonic is a 4X style game where players will be exploring new sectors of a galaxy by drafting sector tiles, expanding their empire's industrial, political, and martial systems by developing bases, exploiting unique technological advantages by managing a hand of technology cards, and of course exterminating their way to victory by destroying and attacking their opponent's bases and units. Hegemonic is distinct among empire building games because by developing your industrial, political, and martial systems, all of these feed into growing your economy and the capacities of your empire, and all of these different systems tie into a central area control mechanic that drives the scoring for the game. So the systems really work together to create a very high and rich conflict-driven game that creates a lot of interaction and engagement between players. Key to the game is the action selection mechanic, so players will simultaneously select and then reveal action cards for the phase. Timing your actions and sequencing them around the anticipated moves of your opponent is really at the central of the strategy and the core kind of gameplay mechanic in the game. In the remainder of this video, we will take a look at the game's components, walk through the key turn order and turn sequence, look at some example gameplay, and we'll highlight some of the features that make it a unique entry in the Space Empire genre. Let's start with an overview of the game's mechanics. Alright, we're going to get started and taking a look at the components for Hegemonic. The game board is built around this core galaxy board that's going to form the center of the galaxy. In the middle of that is a phase track token, and this will be used over the course of each turn to keep track of the current game phase. There are also 9 5-sector galaxy boards, and these boards will be configured in different ways depending on player count to give a unique and different shaped board for each player count. These are just some of the suggested and recommended setups, but players are free to create their own different unique shapes for the galaxy. And the red dots on here are just some of the suggested starting locations for different players. In addition, over the course of the game, these sector tiles will be drafted and played out onto the galaxy board. Let's take a look at these in a little bit more detail. The sector tiles will include 3 different kinds of locations can appear on them. The yellow squares are industrial complexes. So there's a sector tile with a 1 industrial complex and then a power 2 martial outpost. Here is an example of a power 3 martial outpost. And the blue circles are political embassy locations. So this is a power 3 political embassy. And any of the tiles that contain an embassy are associated with a political faction, and that's going to be shown by both the icons in the corner and the color of the tile. So this is the green political faction. Here's a tile that's in the orange political faction with 1 martial outpost and then a power 2 embassy, and you can see the 2 little hashes there. And then here's a tile that's in the purple political faction, and there's 2 industrial complexes and just a power 1 embassy location. In addition, there are 6 home start tiles. So you can see the start tiles have each of the house icons in the background. And these contain each 1 industrial location, a power 2 outpost, and a power 0 embassy. The embassies in the start location are not part of a political faction and don't have any power. So the core of the player's empire development is handled on these on the house player boards, and so each player will have 1 of these boards. Let's take a look at one in more detail so we can talk about some of the components and values that are on it. So the top track is the industrial track, and each player will have 15 complexes. In the middle is the political track with 9 embassies, and in the bottom is the martial track with 12 outposts. In addition, there are 3 pairs of quantum gates, 3 political agents, and 3 fleets. Up at the top are slots for your advanced technology, and at the bottom is a slot for your house ability card. We'll talk about these a little bit later. As players build up bases and place bases onto locations on the sector tiles over the course of the game, they will build these tiles out from left to right across their different tracks. And so, just as you can see there, the cost to build the next base along any of the tracks is the red number that you'd pay down below the different bases. So the next industrial complex to build would cost you 2, the next embassy 5, the next martial outpost is also 5. The yellow numbers at the top, during one of the phases of the game you'll collect money for each of the different tracks, and so the yellow number, you take the highest yellow number in each track, and that's how much you'll collect, associated for the highest built base. And then lastly, the numbers that are revealed underneath the tokens are the retention limit, which is essentially how much money you can carry over from turn to turn. And you always use the lowest among any of the 3 tracks. So in this case, this player's retention limit would be 4. And lastly, each of the tracks has a different tier level as players build across. They'll go from Tier 1 to Tier 2 to Tier 3, depending upon which base is the furthest built. So you can see for industrial they're in Tier 1, and they're in Tier 2 for political and martial. And the tiers provide different benefits unique to each of the different tracks. The core of the gameplay really hinges on the action cards. So these are the backs of the action cards. And each player will have a set of 6 identical action cards: Assault, Industrialize, Politicize, Martialize, Subvert, and Discover. If you look at one of these in a little bit more detail, you can see the name of the action card at the top, Martialize, Action Allowance. Each action card lets players take up to 2 of the actions that are indicated on it. They can take the same action twice. They can take the actions in any order. So the actions are denoted in the boxes. So there's Action 1, in this case lets you build outposts and fleets. Action 2 is a takeover action that would initiate a conflict between 2 players. And at the bottom is the basic action. We'll talk more about the specific actions later on. The big number at the top of the card is important because this is the order in which the action card is resolved. So we'll talk about that during the turn order. There are 54 technology cards in the game, and these are split up between industrial, political, and martial techs. And these technologies occur at Tier 1, so these are 3 example Tier 1 cards. There are Tier 2 cards and Tier 3 cards that get progressively more powerful. All in all, there are 8 different technologies within each of the 3 branches that you can advance, and there's, of course, multiple copies of these to get up to 54 cards. So just an example of one of the technology cards. The name of the technology is listed at the top, the technology tier level, the cost to advance this technology and take advantage of the benefit, the technology effect when it's advanced, and then the 3 big numbers at the bottom are power levels, power bonuses that are used in conflict. Depending upon what kind of conflict's being used, you'll be able to add those values into your strength in a conflict. There's the back of a technology card for reference. There is the score track. So this will be similar to other games where players will move their score track tokens along the track to keep track of their current score. And some of the other components, there are cap tokens. So caps is the single currency used in the game. It stands for capacity. It's basically your empire's ability to build or do anything. There's the Arbiter token. This functions as both a first player token, and also the Arbiter has special abilities in resolving turn order during the game. There are 6 optional house ability cards that players will use that you can see here. And then of course the rule book.